In day one of our series on post-college prep, we are tackling the student debt crisis, which recently hit an all-time high. In the U.S., about 65% of college seniors who graduated in 2017 had student loan debt, while 40% of younger borrowers carry credit card debt. Our next guest says both kinds of debt can turn into a trap if students don't understand some money basics. Joining me now is Brian Brenberg, chair of the program in business and finance at the King's College in New York City. Man, Brian, I needed some of your advice when I was younger. I'll tell you that.
I needed my advice when I was
really did.
younger.
I'm so glad you're here. One stat that jumped out to me that was outrageous: adults age 18 to 29 had $60 billion in credit card debt in Q4 of 2018. So what do you have to say, first of all, to young people out there who are listening, who are struggling with debt, who have these student loans and don't know what to do?
Right. Well, number one, you've got to prioritize paying them off. It's hard in the culture we live in. We live in this Instagram culture where you see your friends doing all sorts of great things, traveling around the world, brunch with friends, the great apartment in the hip part of town. You've got to stay away from that fear of missing out when it comes to your budget, and you've got to prioritize paying your debt. You've got to start on it now, and you can't let that interest build up, because if it does, it'll sink you. And many of us know that from our own prior experience in life, that can really sink you. And so you've got to start now with the right habits. Budgeting is really important. Budget around your real priorities. Don't budget around your imagined priorities or what you see happening with your friends on Instagram.
Okay, and step three, so you gave us the first two steps right there. Step three, don't follow the grad school herd. I went to grad school, I have to say, and looking back, I don't know if it was the best decision, because when I came out, I had this great degree, but I struggled to find a job. I got a free ride because I worked, my butt off. But if you don't, you wind up having a lot of debt, and then you're kind of lost out there.
Yeah, so many people get done with their undergraduate degree and they say, I don't know what to do out there in the world. And so the path of least resistance for them is to go back to school and do more grad school. Well, that's a recipe for disaster for a couple of reasons. One is you're going to spend more money going to school. And number two, you're going to get out there after grad school, and a lot of employers are going to look at you and say, well, I think you might be overqualified for an entry-level job, and you still might not know what you want to do. It's much better, especially in this economy. I mean, this economy is so full of jobs. Wages are rising. The best thing you can do is go out and work, build a resume, build some experience. That's going to help you pay down the loans you had from undergrad, and it's going to give you a better sense of what you should do in the world.
What about young people who say, I am working, but stuff is expensive, and you say live within your means. What if you live in a city like New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco, or these really expensive places where you're on your own, you have to pay your rent, you are trying to budget, you're doing your best, but that credit card has to go up. You have no choice. Are there any things you can do? Well, yes, the credit card is building, but you can kind of manage your reality if that is your reality.
Well, look, number one, you've got to get creative, and number two, you've got to get honest. What I find with a lot of students is they'll say, well, I'm living, right at the edge of my means, there's nothing I can do. But when you ask them, look, have you really sat down and done a line-by-line audit of where your money goes? What happens is you find out, oh my goodness, I am spending so much money on breakfast out or coffee out, and I didn't know that. You've got to get that under control. That's how you actually start to get out of that debt hole. But get serious about it.
Man, I wish I had you on speed dial back in the day. Tomorrow, in day two of our series on post-college prep, Brian is explaining resume do's and don'ts. Super, super important.
You bet.
All right, a Fox News alert.